Did Sony cancel this year's PS5 showcase? Xbox is out here stealing PS5 exclusives and Sony is pissed. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to PSReady, the channel all about PlayStation. You are getting a bonus single host news video. Ray is not feeling too great this week, so we had to cancel our not podcast. We got to talk about Xbox coming out and stealing more Sony games. We've talked about this before with MLB The Show. Basically, Sony has had the monopoly on baseball games for a really long time now. Not necessarily because they bought the license like EA did with the NFL license. They just made the best baseball game out there, and every competitor that has come out hasn't really lived up to what Sony has been doing down in San Diego. The issue really started when their contract came to an end with the MLB, and the MLB basically came back to them and was like, look, you guys are making the best baseball game. We are totally into that idea. We're not into the idea of it only being on PlayStation. So your options are expand out, make your game for Switch, PC, and Xbox, or we'll take the license and go to someone else, and we genuinely do not care if our baseball game is worse because people are going to buy it for that license. Not only did Sony buckle under that pressure and end up porting the game to other consoles, they also got screwed by the MLB going to Xbox and allowing that game to be on Game Pass 2 years in a row. And side note, after seeing EA be confident enough to ditch the FIFA brand because they couldn't use certain brands in the games for apparel and stuff like that, I honestly, looking back, think it might have been smarter for Sony to just say, screw you, MLB, we're going to keep making our awesome baseball game, and that's just how it's going to be. I'm not a huge sports guy, so maybe there's something where, like, even if EA doesn't use the FIFA license, they can still get the likeness of the people in the league or something like that, and that doesn't happen with the MLB, so that could be why they buckled under the pressure and didn't end up doing what EA did. I don't really know, but the point is, Xbox has been getting crafty with putting Sony games on Game Pass and really getting people excited about subscribing to that service. And now that deal is expanding outside of the MLB with yet another loophole that's honestly kind of like out of pocket on Microsoft's part, in my opinion. So basically, Death Stranding, it's the new Kojima game. It's actually really good. It's basically what happened after PT came out and got canceled. They took a lot of the ideas that were going to be put into that game and put it into Death Stranding. It's a huge PS4 exclusive that ended up getting a director's cut just like Ghost of Tsushima. The issue is, unlike every other PS5 exclusive or PS4 exclusive that's come over to PC, this one's PC version was not produced by Sony. It was produced by 505 Games, the people who are notorious for their really terrible upgrade paths on PC. They made the PS5 version of Death Stranding come to Steam. So they basically made a backhanded deal with Microsoft to get the PC version of Death Stranding onto PC Game Pass. And the reason you'll never see this, I know never say never, but the reason you'll probably never see this happen on the console side is because Sony published Death Stranding and did a ton of marketing for it. They probably have a huge stake in that game on the console side, but 505 Games had just enough stake on the PC side to be able to make this deal with Microsoft. If you watch the channel, you know I play PC games, and even with that perspective of playing PC and PS5 and having Game Pass on PC, I don't really know what Microsoft's move is here other than just being irritating, because Death Stranding not only has been out for a couple of years now on PC, you've also been able to upgrade to the director's cut for $10 if you previously bought it on Steam or the Epic Games Store. But on top of that, like, the Game Pass versions of games on PC generally across the board run worse on the Xbox app, and most PC gamers like using Steam at the very top, and I guess they tolerate that Game Pass app, and then below that is stuff like Origin, the Ubisoft launcher, and Epic Games Store is like way down at the bottom through the floor, not even on the pyramid. I hate the Epic Games Store so much. So yeah, it's cool that it's coming to Game Pass on PC, and at the time of filming this, it's basically a rumor, but it's a confirmed rumor because Microsoft has been changing profile pictures to have Death Stranding backgrounds on Twitter and stuff, so it's definitely going to happen. I just feel like everyone who had a passing interest in this game at the very least has probably already played it. Like, it's gone on sale for less than $20 multiple times on PC, and even if you end up picking up the original version of Death Stranding for like $5 on G2A or something like that, you can still upgrade it to the director's cut for $10 and you're in for $15. So because of that, I feel like everyone who wanted to play this game has probably already played it. So that's why I'm taking the rare stance of being a Sony fanboy, I guess, and saying that Microsoft is just kind of being weird and petty here, and I don't really understand it. For this next story, still got to talk about Xbox on PC a little bit, but it's mostly Sony focused. So that Game Pass app I was just talking about, the Xbox app on PC, it's just not great. It doesn't run well. The games look and run worse on there. You can't find the EXE easily. There's just like a whole bunch of issues with it. Like, it just got the feature of being able to pick where it installs installs on your PC. A lot of basic stuff that even the Epic Game Store has, this app is still getting now instead of like in the past. So needless to say, most people on PC don't like using the Game Pass app, which is weird because Microsoft makes Windows. They also own Xbox. You would think they would have a great app on PC and it would be super easy for them to continually put out great ports since they make both Xbox and Windows. That unfortunately thus far has not been the case, and Sony somehow has done a better job than Microsoft at porting their games over to PC. Sony is making a launcher for PC, and it honestly seems like it's going to be pretty cool. We've heard leaks about this for months now. Sony's actually been publicly hiring for someone to make an app like this, but in the Spider-Man PC port, we've actually seen files that reference a Sony PC launcher, and within those files, people have been able to find references to both cross-buy and cross-save. Back in the Vita days, cross-buy and cross-save was like the best thing ever, because if you bought a game on PS3 or PS4 and it had a Vita version and supported this service, you would get a free code for the Vita version of that game. So like if I went out and bought PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale on PS3, I'd get a digital code for the Vita version, and then if I wanted to trade in the PS3 version down the line, I got to keep that Vita version forever, and it was awesome. So now in 2022, the incentive is obviously you'll buy the game digitally on your PS5 or on your PC through the Sony app, and you'll get a vice versa copy of that, which is great because I'm someone who plays my PC games on a gaming laptop. I love going home to Michigan and I hate lugging around my PS5. So if I have the games digitally on my PS5 in my account and then I can just download them on my PC and have my save there as well, that's like the best thing ever considering Sony is now working on having live service games. So like with any other publisher, I would be super skeptical of them having their own launcher, but Sony has really put their money where their mouth is with PC ports, and they've been largely incredible across the board. Horizon Zero Dawn, that one came out and was rough. They doubled down and did as much work as they could to fix it. The issue was the game itself was kind of messed up, so they couldn't really get super far in making it a perfect port, but Days Gone, God of War, and now Spider-Man are all perfect PC ports, and I absolutely love playing those games on PC. So yeah, I'm excited about this PC launcher. I hope it comes sooner rather than later and has all of these features that are alluded to. Honestly, I'm less concerned with cross-buy than I am cross-save. If they make me buy the game twice but my save will transfer, I will probably be there day one, double dipping for Sony. So we just talked about Microsoft fighting Sony by putting games that they made onto Game Pass, but Sony, we have heard through this Brazil ratings board thing, and now a new game is fighting back by just paying developers not to put their games on Game Pass. So on one of the many Kind of Funny Games podcasts, they were talking about this deal with Death Stranding coming over to PC Game Pass, and Gary Whitta, the writer of Rogue One, who's also the writer of that upcoming game Forspoken, talked about how allegedly Sony has just paid Devolver Digital and the developers of Cult of the Lamb to keep that game off Game Pass, which honestly is pretty believable to me because when you look at Cult of the Lamb, it's one of those games that you just kind of assume is on Game Pass because it's a cool indie game, and those kind of seem to be the games Microsoft is spending money on. So it makes sense to me personally that Sony would be saying, hey, we've got a huge chunk of money here that we want to spend on your game. All you have to do is just not put it on Game Pass. And they've done stuff like this before, like back in the day during the PS3 and PS4 generation, when Sony really cared about indie games and also wanted to get them on Vita, they had this thing called the Pub Fund and XDev. And both of those things within Sony were basically like a pot of money set aside to be spent on indie games, and the only stipulation was they had to be PlayStation exclusive for just a few months, and then also XDev would be developers within Sony who would help out indie devs in getting these games over the finish line. They've also had a division within Sony Santa Monica that produced games like What Remains of Edith Finch and other stuff. They would go out to other developers and like pick up indie games and like kind of publish them, but it would be more of a second party, like helping them get it over the finish line situation. So this just seems to be a revival of that, but now it's more important than ever because if an indie game needs money to get over the finish line, Xbox can just front that immediately because they have Microsoft's backing, and then they're going to say, yeah, your game has to be on Game Pass and exclusive to Xbox for at least a year. That's a lot worse for Sony than just paying to get the game finished and not even buying exclusivity on it. Just saying, no, you can't put it on Game Pass. You have to make it a buyable game on Xbox because they know more PlayStation 5s are out there than Xboxes, so they'll get more purchases in the long run. Because Ray is not here to argue with me, I'm just going to continue being the biggest fanboy ever. I'm personally fine with this. I bought the game, I'm going to be real with you guys, on Steam because I wanted to play it on my Steam Deck. Like, these indie games are perfect for handheld, and if Sony's not going to give me a handheld to play them on, I'm going to get them on Steam Deck. But if I didn't, I totally would have just bought it on my PS5 because, I don't know, even though Sony kind of bailed on indie games for the back half of the PS4 generation, everything they're doing now seems to be good because giving indie developers more money, that's awesome. And now my fanboy streak ends because we get to talk about the PlayStation 5 showcase maybe not happening this year. So in 2020 and 2021, around August or September, Sony has done a big showcase where they put out like an invitation to watch a digital stream that has the PlayStation buttons with like diamonds all over them to be like, yo, this is not just a state of play. This is a big event akin to something like E3 where you're going to see huge games get announced like Resident Evil Village, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Demon Souls, Final Fantasy 16, you know, the higher profile stuff that we're not going to show you in a state of play. We've got Gamescom opening night live coming up. We also have the Destiny 2 showcase, which I guess is kind of like a secret Sony showcase now because they own Bungie. That's kind of weird. We also have the Disney, Marvel, Lucas 20th Century Game showcase coming up, which I bet we'll see a ton of PS5 exclusive games at as well. So I could see Sony sitting above all of this being like, well, we gave this game to Jeff Keighley over at opening night live. We've got our new studio Bungie announcing stuff at their own showcase. And of course, at this Disney one, two of our biggest games, Wolverine and Spider-Man 2, could also make appearances there, plus whatever else we're working on. We just don't really have enough first-party stuff to talk about that's new at a new showcase. But now, of course, they could just be waiting to finalize their list before they announce something like this, because we've heard that they've had showcases ready to go. I mean, we just heard that Konami had one ready for last E3, and they canceled it like 2 days before it happened. So if Sony's not completely ready to show stuff, I could see them sitting there being like, well, we'll just hold off on this showcase until we're absolutely ready, because that strategy has helped them out a lot in the past. Personally, while I could definitely see that happening, I think we're still going to get a showcase this year just because so many big games have either been externally or internally delayed to 2023. There is a ton of stuff coming out next year, even stuff we don't know about, that I feel like Sony wants to get the best stuff right in front of people's eyes because, you know, Xbox has a lot of stuff in the back burner too, like Starfield and Redfall, and Sony's got to do something to make sure that people know the best place to play games is on PS5, because they're still facing the issue of you could go to Target right now and pick up an Xbox Series X, and you cannot say the same thing about either digital or disc edition PS5. I think Sony's got a lot of stuff we don't even know about yet, and this seems like the perfect event to show off something like the Last of Us multiplayer game.